Posted Gloves here, and this is the 17th video in the Kontakt from the Ground Up tutorial series. And today we are going to talk about modulation sources. This is a fundamental part to pretty much any kind of synthesis. And in Kontakt, you have some extensive options, and they are extraordinarily important. So we're just going to open up a choir, because I just like the choir so much. And they're great pad sounds. And so if we open it up here, you're going to see this MOD in our instrument edit options here and throughout various other parts. You'll probably see an MOD, and that just stands for modulation source. So if you click down here, we have our modulation sources. This menu does not become available till you add one. And what is a modulation source? Because before we dig into this, this is like a huge can of worms. Like, I'm probably going to try and avoid this just so we can continue focusing on signal flow in this series, but it's something that you should know about earlier. So if we go to our modules, we have just ridiculous amount of effects and stuff that we can add, and each one does something different. It's awesome, and you can go through different effects. But you also have these what's modulators tab, and you'll notice that in each of these tabs they have, except for the effects, they have sub tabs, and you could turn on your info to see what these things do, and they'll tell you. But what modulators do is they're a signal you don't hear. They are a signal that tells another signal how to behave. So generally, when you're modulating something, like, you can use a really slow signal, a really slow sine wave, to tell like the volume to turn on and off. And when the signal is all the way up, it's all the way on. And when the signal is all the way down, it's all the way off. And that is generally what an LFO is. It's just different signals telling other signals how to behave. And there's all these different kinds. And so just some general applications. Why would you want that? Well, you can use it for pitch. You could control pitch and things with this. As you see, if we click on our modulation, it opens up, and you could set a target. So you could do aftertouch if you've got aftertouch on your keyboard, or you could just do all these different things. And then you could select a target, another target. There's just all this stuff. We're going to talk about this stuff, but I just want you to know what this is. And the most common modulator option you're probably going to use, because when you open up a new instrument, let's say you put a sample in there. Let's go to the cello pack again, and we'll go to Fiend. So you put a sample in there, but it actually put one in here by default. Sometimes you will not have a volume modulation source, and generally you want to use what's called an envelope for this. And an envelope, it's really nice because they actually have a visual representation. It tells the volume on your sample how to behave, or the amplitude. So you turn the attack up so it'll smooth in, and then it will reach a peak, and it will stay at this peak. And when you release the key on this particular envelope, it will fade out like so. And that would matter more if we had a sample that, held out, like the voice that we just had opened. And so we already talked about source modules, so you should know how to mess with things to get it to do something along what you're looking for. But let's say your amplifier, you've set up some loops, and your loops are starting in like the middle of the phrase, right? And you don't want that. You can use a amp modulator. So you're going to modulate how the volume changes. So you put one down, you go modulator, and boom, you add an envelope. So once you do that, you can come down here, and we see we have one on velocity. And yeah, this is just a whole can of worms, just showing you some basics here. And you can change the attack time. And it's important to sort of get a grip on what we psychologically perceive as a delay. If you've ever used a MIDI controller in a DAW, you've probably experienced trying to use your primary sound driver as a MIDI controller, and as a result, you got a gross delay. You hit a key, and it took like 5 years for the sound to get back to you. So you could never play in real time because the delay is just too big. But if you get like an Audio driver, which can handle a much faster audio processing rate, its buffer is better, just all these different things, then you will hear it, you'll push it, and it'll perceive to you'll perceive as if it just happened right there. Well, is it really just happening right there? And the answer is, of course, no. There's still a delay, but it's within, I believe it's within 10 milliseconds. It might be 30. It varies. You generally want to get it down to like 8 milliseconds or below. At least that's my rule. 10 is fine too, I guess. But you want to get the delay down small enough. If you don't know about this stuff, I'll probably do a DSP video on buffer. Let me write that down, buffer, because it's really important concept to know, especially when you're playing back samples and you're recording people and they are hearing themselves to the song. It can be a big deal. And that has to do, and you also want an audio interface. But these modulation sources can help fix that. So within 8 milliseconds, what this means is that the attack will smooth out the click, but you will still not, you won't perceive that it's been, there won't be a big noticeable fade in. So if we go, but if we go all the way up, because we moved our start time to this point, right? Now we'll get a click. You hear that click? That super annoying click, man. We can move it up to 3 milliseconds. Still sounds like it's being plucked because this is an outrageously fast attack. But the click is gone. So stuff like that, knowledge about that. So the DSP series has some information that I think people should just straight up know. And this isn't necessarily, the buffer is digital signal processing. The psychology of it isn't really signal processing, but I'll include it in that series anyways because it's focused around sound. So that's what a modulation source is, and you can add them to affect pitch. You can add them to affect just all manner of things, and we're going to start getting into this stuff as we go along. But I hope I answered some general questions so that you can get the instrument to behave the way you want it to. And that is that. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments, and have a blessed day.